The second round of the NBA playoffs have been wasted drunk. Winning teams on the road more often than not. You have game-winning shots that haven't happened in decades happening back-to-back. What in the world are these teams doing? How do they have these pieces that Memphis clearly does not? And how can the Grizzlies go about acquiring them? We're going to talk about that and more on this episode of Locked On Grizzlies. Let's lock in.
You are Locked On Grizzlies, your daily Memphis Grizzlies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's a Thursday edition of Locked On Grizzlies. I am one of your hosts, Joe Mullinax, joined by my co-host, Damichael Cole, superstar Damichael Cole. Commercial appeal there in Memphis, Tennessee. Couple of TV appearances yesterday. The big dog doing some big things. Very proud of my partner. And you guys should be proud of Damichael as well. Shout out to Damichael and shout out to each and every everydayer that makes Damichael and I part of their Memphis Grizzlies NBA content consumption each and every time an episode drops of our little podcast we like to call Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google, literally they are all good for you to make us a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies podcast party that hopefully you partake in each and every day with us here at Locked On Grizzlies. We are proud members of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team each and every single day. Damichael, we haven't been together for a couple of days. We both took a day off there a couple of days ago, and then you were solo yesterday, which I appreciate. It's a busy time of year for your boy as the school year closes out. But happy to be back with you here. And I'm happy to just kind of take a moment to pause, not in the awkward, innuendo way, but pause in terms of look at us, look at where we are watching the NBA playoffs. I alluded to it there at the beginning of the show. Road teams winning left and right. Tyrese Halliburton taking very personally being called the most overrated player in the NBA by his peers. You have the New York Knicks ripping the hearts out of the Boston Celtics. We might be approaching a New York, Indiana Eastern Conference Finals. Reggie Miller, Allen Houston,
Spike Lee, Allen Houston, bring them all back.
Let's go back in the day, right? Like it's old school Eastern Conference. It looks like is the way this thing is trending. Obviously, Steph Curry's hamstring is a major story in the Western Conference. How the Thunder choked away against the Nuggets. There's so many storylines. I just thought we'd lead off today after being apart for a couple of days, talking about these playoffs and just how wasted drunk they are. It's absolutely insane in the second round.
Joe, you ain't gonna like this next part, but it's okay. Shout out to Adam Silver. Unmute your mic, Joe. Shout out to Adam.
We're not shouting out Adam Silver.
Adam Silver.
We're not going to honor Adam Silver. This has nothing to do with Adam Silver.
Is working out right now. When Adam Silver took over as the NBA's commissioner, and in his tenure, one of the biggest things that he's emphasized is creating parity throughout the league, eliminating the super team, without, actually eliminating the super team. Right now, what we're witnessing so far throughout the playoffs is some of the best parity we've ever seen across the NBA. And this was expected at the beginning of the season. You rewind the tape when we were talking. Go look at before the season when me and Joe did our Western Conference standings preview episodes and whatnot. What I continuously said is the Western Conference is going to be more about matchups than this team is better than the rest of the teams.
You did say that.
It's no longer the case in the West. It's all about who you go against. And a prime example of that is if you look at, how the Grizzlies played the Warriors, right? And I mean, we saw the last 2-minute report of that game. If you switch up a couple of those calls in the last 2-minute report, the Grizzlies probably beat the Warriors on the road in that play-in game. But the Warriors go into the first round of the playoffs, comfortably. Well, not comfortably, but they squeak past the number 2 seed, and now they have, a 1-0 lead in the second round, in the semifinals. So it just goes to show it's very matchup based because the Grizzlies got swept in the first round. So the Western Conference is all about matchups, but shout out to Adam Silver. Look, Joe likes to give Adam Silver a tough time, but I think what we're seeing right now is, I'll say 75%. I'm not going to give him 100% credit. 75% of what we're witnessing is, Adam Silver and his increased emphasis on league parity. We're seeing 6 seeds, 7 seeds, road teams. This playoffs has been, it hasn't been great for the gamblers who like to bet the favorites. I feel bad for you guys. But this has been great for just the average fan who, look, people like me and Joe, and I'm sure many of the people who are listening on here, you watch the Grizzlies most of the season. So now we get to watch the rest of the league, and we're being privy to some really good basketball right now. So I'm going to say it one more time before I pass it over to Joe, because he doesn't like this. Shout out to Adam Silver for there's no talk of three-peats and all that crap right now. It's you got to survive season by season because league parity is at an all-time high.
Who are the 2 teams in the last 5 years that have paid the most money in luxury tax? You could probably answer this off the top of your head because you're so tuned into the NBA. Isn't it like the Boston Celtics and the Golden State Warriors?
And the Warriors, yeah.
Who's still active in the playoffs right now, Damichael Cole?
The Warriors.
Are both of those teams still active?
They are. Yeah, they are.
Okay, and the Boston Celtics have won a championship recently and that sort of thing.
Neither one is favored to win their series at this point.
At this point, that's fair. I think that we're giving Adam Silver a little too much credit on this.
I'm sure you do.
I think that, I would imagine that Joe Mazzulla there in Boston is not super stoked with how his team has choked away leads. I struggle with that. I do think that it's important to point out that Adam Silver disdain aside, what the NBA has over teams like the NFL or leagues like the NFL, is the ability to command for extended periods of time throughout the length of a series. You can establish a narrative, right?
Yep.
Where the NFL thrives is it's one game, do or die, and football's just king in America.
Yep.
But the NBA, I would argue, more on a more national scale than the regional NHL and regional Major League Baseball at this point, to be honest with you. Where the NBA fills that void is you can build a narrative over a 7-game series. Like, how does Boston come back? Right? How does Cleveland come back? How do the Warriors respond to the Steph Curry injury? How do the Young Thunder match up and pick themselves up against, the Joker after losing home court advantage? There's so many levels to this that are fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And you get those stories over a 7-game series as opposed to a one-and-done football game. And again, you get that in hockey with a 7-game series. You get that in Major League Baseball. But I would argue that the NBA, between those 3, is the one true national league, right? Like the NHL is more regionalized. Major League Baseball, I know you're a big Braves fan. Baseball has become more of a regional sport. The NBA has an opening here, and this is a chance for them to take advantage of it because these playoff series, whether it's because of Adam Silver or not, have been phenomenal.
This is what people want. Like, I think people would be turned off from the NBA when we saw basically LeBron versus the Warriors forever. Like, it just was LeBron versus the Warriors. Here we go. LeBron and the Warriors again. LeBron and the Warriors again. And as fun as those matchups were, and you kind of expected them, right? And it's like it led to us kind of, decreasing the meaning of the regular season, right? And now we're already in an era where, guys aren't playing third night of 4 games. The third game in 4 nights or back-to-backs and things like that. But what this is doing, what this playoff run is doing is kind of re-emphasizing, like, the importance of putting yourself in the best position because it's going to be tough regardless. Like, Houston is the number 2 seed, and by the end of the season, they had a chance to rest their best players. OKC, same thing. But neither one of them, Houston's already gone, and OKC is seeing it now. It's not going to be easy to get to where you want to go, and it's being proven, in the Eastern Conference as well. Sure, the Cavs have had some injuries kind of, hurt them a little bit, but you look at the regular season, Boston swept the Knicks. But playoff basketball is a different breed. And the Grizzlies have been on the other side of that token a lot of times, right? we often talk about, oh, this team in the regular season, this happened. But when you get to the playoffs, we talk about it's a different game. It's more physical. And I'm telling you, just getting the chance to watch this can bring out the hunger in some of those Grizzlies players probably, Joe.
I'm a curmudgeon when it comes to this. I'm going to kindly point out that all of a sudden we're back in the 1980s and 1990s, right? 91 to 90 scores and that sort of thing. Where was this defense, a month and a half ago? Where was that at the end of the regular season? How come I was watching so many 134 to 131 basketball games?
The answer to that.
I do know the answer.
To that.
But that's part of I truly believe the NBA has an opportunity here. Yeah. Like they're already by,
if you expect dudes to play like this for 82 games, Joe, I got news for you.
I do think that you talk about condensing the regular season. No one's ever going to want money taken from them. So that's not realistic. I think that they have a realistic chance here to become the clear number 2 in America, because we have to keep in mind, number 2 in America is college football, right? Like football has such a stronghold over the country. I think that the NBA has the personalities. That parity is valuable. We see it in the NFL. If people feel like their team has a chance, that has value, but
I'm not sure. I don't know the numbers, but the NBA, is the NBA over March Madness? Like,
I believe so. I think that they have that ability to get to that place. The game 7 of Steph Curry and the Warriors against the Rockets, I believe it said, was the highest rated game on TNT since 2009. So they have to strike while the iron's hot here and, keep building the game, because they have a really good product right now. That's just the reality. It's competitive, highly intense. And again, it's physical basketball. This is the kind of basketball I like. I am a fan of, you have 6 fouls, Looney for the Warriors said, I'm going to make them call it. That's what I want to see. I want to see dudes get after it a little bit like that. And that's the kind of hoops that we're watching right now. Let Damichael and I know in the comments. Hit us up on X at Damichael C or at Joe Mullinax. How are you feeling about the NBA playoffs at this time? And let's bring it back to the Grizzlies coming up next here on Locked On Grizzlies. What exactly is Memphis missing? Zach Kleiman said that they're not close. Damichael and I concurred with that take a little while ago. Watching these teams play, what exactly is Memphis missing? Let's talk about that next. Stick around. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is brought to you by Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more. Experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives businesses flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. Posting a job is free and simple, and within a day, with multiple qualified candidates to choose from. If you need help with a marketing campaign, Upwork can connect you with a freelance expert who delivered incredible results, and it leads to cost-effective growth. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com, to connect with top talent and grow your business today. Today's episode of Locked On Grizzlies is also brought to you by Game Time. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. We're seeing it play out live and in person just about every night. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Game Time, you can be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. You can make fast and easy purchases of playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. The all-in pricing also means that there's no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. I like that a lot, and personally, that's a big deal for me. You get that at Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. So this isn't Locked On NBA, although I think you and I would do a phenomenal job hosting that podcast, partner. This is Locked On Grizzlies.
The first segment was pretty good, yeah.
I thought we did a pretty good job, just in case our bosses are watching. But Locked On Grizzlies is where we are, and we're more than happy. It would be I want to stress that we would add to the workload. We certainly wouldn't leave Locked On Grizzlies. Maybe I'm going to sound silly, Damichael, and you can certainly rein me back in.
Mm-hmm.
Watching these playoffs, Zach Kleiman talked a lot about how the team isn't close. And I agree, but maybe not for the reasons that you might agree. We might concur in this case, but it might be for differing lanes of thought. When I watch the Indiana Pacers, when I watch the New York Knicks, I don't see this massive talent gap between them and the Memphis Grizzlies. That's not what I see. I think these Memphis Grizzlies have the talent to do a lot of the things that we're seeing. And because of the parity in the NBA, as you alluded to, so much of it is matchup dependent, right? So I think the talent isn't where they're far off. It's up here. And to be honest with you, to be frank, it's right here. I don't think it's a physical thing. I think it's a mental thing. I think it's mental toughness. I think it's want to in some cases. You talk about the physicality. At one point, watching the Memphis Grizzlies play basketball this season, did you watch them and say, damn, that is a physical basketball team, the Memphis Grizzlies? Those are some hard-nosed dudes. And it comes back to what Zach Kleiman talked about in his media availability at the end of the season, looking for more dogs, right? Looking for more aggression, more physicality. To me, that is where Memphis is furthest away. I don't know that they have that consistently. It doesn't mean they're soft. That doesn't mean that they, don't want it. That's not how I don't want it to come off like that. You just watch these games. Do you see the Grizzlies winning a 91-90 playoff game right now? I don't. I don't know that they have the capacity to win that style of basketball game. And that's clearly what it takes in the playoffs more often than not, if we are to base it off of these second round results.
Joe, you're cooking right now, man. I should call you Chef Joe because as I've watched these playoffs unfold, and, everyone will have kind of their own opinion on this thing. But Zach Kleiman said, we're not close, right? That was his words. And as I've watched these playoffs, and I'm like, maybe they're not close, but they're not as far off as I initially thought they were.
Talent-wise, they're not far off at all.
And then when you get into it, you break it down, and you realize, okay, you got a coaching change here. You make some roster tweaks here and there. Like, they have a very good chance to be relevant in that group again, like they were, 2021, 2022. I think you're right on the money with the mental part, because I want to add to what you just said. You said it's up here, right? It's mental. I'll go a step further. In 2021, 2022, what did we see? We saw the Grizzlies talking trash. We saw, that edge, right? Whether it was Dylan Brooks, whether it was Steven Adams carrying guys. Like, it didn't have to be in the same manner that Dylan Brooks did it. Like, I see people saying, oh, they miss Dylan Brooks. It's not even that, because Ja's dialed it back some, right? A lot. And it's a lot of the off the court things have kind of, played into that. And again, if you have watched Ja talk and you listen to him talk, I mean, it's good that he thinks before he talks. I don't want this to come off the wrong way. Like, he's more measured with what he says now. But at the same time, I think that attitude, not just for Ja, it's just throughout the whole team, kind of carries over to the basketball court when you don't need to be measured in any way. You just need to go out there and be free, right? But I think a lot of times that we're not seeing that same edge that we saw in 21, 22 in those seasons. So I think you're on to something, Joe. I think 100% a lot of it is mental, because that's what I used to have fun writing about, like the swagger of the Grizzlies, the fun style that they had on and off the floor.
The audacity of the Memphis Grizzlies. And I mean that as a compliment. Yeah. I wrote an article over at Grizzly Bear Blues years ago called The Audacity of Ja Morant. He's a big middle finger, man. That's what he used to be. And I don't think it's a coincidence that when he had his best run of the season there at the end, Damichael, he's throwing grenades into the crowd and covering his ears.
Go look at that.
Again, another to the greatest commissioner in professional sports, apparently, according to Damichael Cole, Adam Silver. That's what Ja Morant was doing. It was a proverbial middle finger to the person and the people who were unfairly, I'm supporting Ja on this, unfairly attacking Ja Morant when it was an issue across the league, and it's only a problem because of the context of off-the-court issues, which no 6-year-old watching the league, watching his heroes do these things, is going to know about. So not to go back down that rabbit hole, but it's the audacity, Damichael. I dare I say I want it back. They need to be that, I don't want to say villain, but they need to find that confidence again. And if it leads to them, doing,
I'll say it, they need to be that villain. That's the
Yeah.
Memphis mentality. This is an underdog city. This is he talked about going to get the dogs. The dogs are underdogs for the most part. Like, yeah, that's what you need here.
And that was the greatness of Dillon Brooks when Dillon Brooks didn't think that he was the second or third best player on the team. And that's an important piece of context that people miss when it comes, well, we should still have Dillon Brooks. If Dillon Brooks was comfortable being the fourth or fifth best player on the team and not shooting 20 shots, then Dillon Brooks would be great here. I nailed his contract. If everybody remembers correctly, I'll pat myself on the back on that. People thought there's no way he makes that much money. There's value in that kind of player, but they have to understand their role. And Dillon was never going to understand his role in Memphis for reasons that aren't his fault. Going all the way back to 2017, 2018. I remember those years. I was there. I was covering the team. I remember watching Dillon Brooks do things he never should have been asked to do. But it led to him thinking he was a bigger piece of this than he was. Yeah. And that was the situation. But they don't miss Dillon Brooks. They miss somebody that is so passionately, unapologetically a competitor that it provides cover for the other guys to be more themselves. I do think that is a fair thing to say. Let Damichael and I know in the comments. Hit us up on X. Do you agree with again, I don't want to put the words into Michael's mouth. Sounds like we're on the same page. It's not a physical thing in terms of talent for the Memphis Grizzlies. It's rediscovering that mental edge that they had all those years ago now, which is sad to say, but it's true, right? It's several seasons ago now that the Grizzlies were running rampant across the NBA. When we come back here on Locked On Grizzlies, we'll close out this episode with a tough conversation, one that I'm not sure I'm necessarily ready for, but I think it's time that we pull the Band-Aid off, so to speak. Stick around here on Locked On Grizzlies. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. They're the #1 business phone system, built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. Their AI agent handles after-hours calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never, ever will miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering our listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OpenPhone.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Go check them out today. What are you waiting for? Go do it now. Stop waiting. All right, Damichael, let's talk about Desmond Bane. I've been thinking about this for a couple of days. You and I talked last week a little bit about potential moves, and I want to stress that I remain on the island of I would leave the core alone. I think there's moves you can make around the core. We're both there. We can talk more about that, especially now that Isolo is the hire. Let's see what it looks like, right? That's kind of where I'm at, and you can reevaluate around the trade deadline. However, we talk about needing somebody with a mentality. We talk about going and getting a dog. John Conchar, G.G. Jackson, and a first-round pick may not bring that dude to Memphis, right? And I think that the reality is, if you want to bring in someone that is going to help be a spark that turns this thing around, you might have to part with somebody like a Desmond Bane. Now, ironically,
there it is.
Ironically,
it's in there.
Of the three, Desmond Bane, you could, I think, in terms of availability, in terms of productivity, he's the leader, dog of the three. He's the leader. So it pains me to say that he is the guy that you move on from, because I think, given everything we talked about earlier in the show, he's one of the ones that does it the way you want it done. But what did we talk about from the beginning of the program? They're not far away talent-wise. And the two main reasons they are not far away talent-specific are Ja Morant, who's one of the most talented players of the NBA, and Jaren Jackson Jr., who's one of the most talented players in the NBA. Desmond Bane is mentally tough. He's gotten the most juice out of the squeeze of his ability. It pains me to say, and I want to stress, I wouldn't do it. I want to see what it looks like with Isolo and pieces moved around these guys. But if you want to talk about fantasy Giannis trades, if you want to talk about, long shot Kevin Durant deals, you want to have these kinds of conversations. I think it has to start with Desmond Bane now. And it hurts me to say because I love Desmond Bane so much, but we're kind of nearing the point of no return with this era of Grizzlies basketball.
When you have these conversations, like the one we're having right now, you got to preface it by saying let's completely separate emotion and logic.
That's what I'm trying to do right now.
I know you're
sobbing on the inside.
Yeah. You never trade Desmond Bane with your emotions.
I could never do it.
And maybe the better way for me to phrase it is he's the captain. All three of them are leaders in their own way. Ja's a leader for this team. Jaren's a leader for this team. Des is a leader for this team. But Desmond Bane is the captain, right? He's the Derek Jeter. If Ja's A-Rod and, those guys, like, he's Derek Jeter. So with that being said, you just nailed it. Like, I think when you talk about ceilings, when you talk about maximizing this window, I don't know if it can be done without Ja. Jaren, I'm willing to listen. I'm
with you.
I'm not as closed off because in 2 weeks we're gonna have a couple very important episodes here on Locked On Grizzlies. Right before Jaren Jackson Jr., we learn of his All-NBA status, and then right after. It's because that's the key to the entire offseason. That'll unlock how the Grizzlies can move forward, not just this year, but long term. And if Jaren Jackson Jr. makes All-NBA, and I don't know if people are ruling it out because of his playoff performance or whatever the case may be, but I want to remind people that our ballots were submitted before the playoffs. So
yeah. It would be more so because Memphis went 13 and 17 in their last 30 games. It wouldn't be the playoff issues.
And I'm trying to get a pulse of this thing. And I'm telling you, Joe, it's going to be close. Like, I've talked to some people, and some like, I got him third team. I put him in over Jalen Williams. Oh, I got him right above James Harden. And some people said, nah, I got Jalen Williams just ahead of him. I got James Harden just ahead of him. I got Şengün just ahead of him. It's going to be very close. So with that being said, I think his contract plays a role into this, but as currently constructed, as we're talking about just the talent levels, as it sounds like you were kind of alluding to there, and just roster makeup. That's, to me, I think roster makeup for me is the easiest. It's why it's the easiest route to trading Desmond Bane if you talk about of the big three, because of the fact that Jaren Jackson Jr., there's no real replacement for what he does, so to speak. And when I say what he does, I'm talking about the two-way potential there. Santi can score the basketball, but he can't score it like Jaren, and definitely isn't playing defense like Jaren. Of course, John Morant, that goes without being said, what he brings at the point guard position. Desmond Bane, like, there's not another probably 20-point per game scorer. But guess what? Jalen Wells is a natural too. Like, if you were to hypothetically package Bane in one of those deals and you go get you a three or something like that, one of those star-studded wings, you could slide that wing into the two, or to the three, and Jalen Wells could move over to the two. And I talked about it a lot yesterday in yesterday's episode. His size, he's a more natural two. He's 6'7", sure, but he's only like 200 pounds, 205, soaking wet. So that's the more natural spot for him, and he's only going to improve. Like, the shooting is solid, right? Defensively, he's solid. And you talk about the idea of adding another player who, small forward, the ideal small forward addition to me would be another two-way player. And if they're able to do that, now you got Ja on the perimeter with two guys. Now you're not just saying Jalen Wells, go guard the top guy every single night, no matter what position he plays. Now you can be like, when you got Luka and LeBron, you can say Jalen Wells did well against LeBron last time. He struggled against Luka. All right, the new guy, you got Luka this time. Jalen Wells, you got LeBron, instead of automatically throwing him on Luka because you have no other choice. You have more optionality. So look, again, I'm with you, Joe. I'm not doing it this offseason at this point. I'm of the mindset, go completely revamp what's around these guys. We didn't talk about it much in the last segment because we talked about the mental aspect of it. But if you want to talk basketball, I think the fact that you're watching these teams play and they got role players just bringing it. It's not just the stars carrying these teams. I mean, Aaron Gordon has had a slam dunk buzzer beater, a 3-point buzzer beater. And Aaron
the Houston
Gordon's
Rockets are going to have Game 7 Buddy Hield playing through their nightmares the entire offseason.
Who's that guy for the Grizzlies? They need
John Conchar.
Oh, and that's where we are. They need those type of guys. I mean, we're going to get into names later on in the season, but I'm looking like in Minnesota's the price tag is running up over there, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker hasn't played well this series, and you could tell that there's going to be a role for him there probably next season. Imagine if the Grizzlies could get a guy like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like in an extended role, the way he plays defense, the way he shoots the basketball from 3-point range. That's the guy you need. That's the type of guy that you need. So I think all that rounds back into what we're having this conversation with Desmond Bane. I think the route you go this year is you completely revamp some things around those guys. If that doesn't work, somebody's got to go between Ja, Des, and Jaren. I'm of the mindset right now. Ja is your untradeable piece. Jaren is I'm 80%, 20% on that one. 80% keep, 20%. I need to see a little bit more from Jaren, especially in the postseason. But Desmond Bane, if you just play the numbers game, he makes the most sense at this point. But let's play it out a little bit longer. But Joe, this is a relevant conversation. We're not jumping the gun here at all. This is a relevant conversation right now.
Let us know how you're feeling about this tough talk with Desmond Bane. Hit us up on X at Damichael C, at Joe Mullinax. Let us know in the comments. Again, Damichael and I are on the record. Blow up everything around those three if you want. But let's see what those three can do. And again, Jalen Wells, I'm with you. He's not untouchable, but he's a pretty key piece. And shout out to Anthony Sane. I thought he did a really cool job in his recent podcast.
He did. Shout out to Sane.
Having that opportunity to be there with Jalen. He represents himself well. It seems like the family represents everything well when it comes to Memphis. They seem bought in. So, again, I'm not saying no to a Giannis trade because of Jalen Wells, but I do think that he's close. He's in that second tier of core pieces now. But I'm curious to see what folks think going into a pretty busy offseason, and that Jaren All-NBA thing does loom quite large. Speaking of the actual basketball side of what Memphis is missing, let's take a deeper dive into that, if you don't mind, partner. We can take it from a draft angle, what we think the Grizzlies could potentially do in the second round. We don't have to give names necessarily, but what kind of pieces should they be looking for? How can they methodically do what we just said? If you want to hold on to Bane and Ja and Jaren, what could a pathway for that look like? What do they need to replace? Maybe that's a good focus for our Friday episode.
Yeah, I definitely like that. And, we haven't talked much about, things like that, especially the assets angle, because if the Grizzlies are going to be aggressive this offseason, we might need to get into the conversation of what assets do they have, because I think a lot of people kind of like, what do we have? We just moved our best piece in Marcus Smart. So, but they have some assets, and it might be a worthwhile conversation. And getting back to your point as well about just, the makeup of this whole thing that they have going forward.
Make sure you're liking, commenting, rating, reviewing, subscribing wherever you get your podcast: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, Google. Make Damichael and I a part of your NBA and Memphis Grizzlies content consumption each and every time that an episode drops. And as Damichael alluded to, obviously lots of different things that we'll be discussing, not just this week, but every episode moving forward. Make sure you're checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Now that you've checked out Locked On Grizzlies, go find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube or. Until then, I'm Joe. That's Damichael. We are so grateful to be back together. We're going to close out the week strong. Shout out to you, everydayers. We'll catch you next time here on Locked On Grizzlies. See you.